So I want to start this morning with a quote that has impacted me these last couple of weeks. And here it is. Thank you, Thor. From Johann Wolfgang von Goethe. Things which matter most must never be at the mercy of things which matter least. I'm just going to let you sit with that for a minute. I have lived for 68 years now. And if I were completely honest with myself, I would say I spent at least 50% of my life paying attention to the things which mattered least. At least. I wouldn't count the last 20 years of ministry, because somehow when you come into religious science and you hear someone like Dr. David Walker speak, or Dr. Bitzer, or Ernest Holmes, or Eric Butterworth, to be honest, it's kind of hard to go back and pretend you don't know what you now know. And so I have, as I've aged in these last 20, 30 years, I have begun focusing more on the things that matter most. But I still get caught up at times in the things that matter least. People's opinions, what other people think I should be doing with my life, other people's concepts of what this whole thing should be about. And it's not that they matter least, it's that that should matter least to me. What should matter to me is what matters most to me. And perhaps that's what matters most to them, but they do not have to be the same thing. We live in a world of multiple opinions and multiple thoughts. So this quote has really moved me these last few weeks. And so I have a question for you, Thor. What matters most in your life? In your personal life, what matters most? I love that. Marilyn and Scott are telling each other that it's each other, right? I love that. Yes. And I can honestly say what matters most to me in my life is not really Kevin, but what Kevin and I create as one. And he is certainly the most important person in my life, right up there with my son and my daughter. But if I take it away from people, what matters most to me in living this life? What matters most? Honesty? That would be a good one. Honesty. Is it easy to be honest in today's society? No. I've had people ask me to take the Biden sign off my car because it insults them. I'm like, that doesn't work for me, because we need to all be willing to sit and share what we believe and respect one another with that. So what matters most in this world to you? Is it love? Is it your career? And it's not like, I know some of you are going to be, because you all are like this, some of you are going to be, actually there's a lot of things that matter most to me. The word most actually means there's something that matters most. And if you really get quiet and you just listen, what is it that matters most? You know what? I think if I were to say, okay, it just came to me, what matters most? What matters most to me is that I am always creating. I must always be creating something. Always. At all times. I have to be creating. Kevin came home the other day and he was like, what happened on the piano? I was like, oh, I was writing a song. He went, how? Because I have, you probably have this too. I have trunks. That's a lie. I have a case. I have a case of music. All these unfinished pieces of music, right? Unfinished. The funny part is, I had my first musical that I wrote was called The Dreamer and the Runner. And we did it in San Francisco, and it was a big hit. We brought it back to New York, and I'm trying to figure out, that title, everybody's telling me the title doesn't work, it's confusing. And I walked into my piano room in New York City one afternoon, and on my piano was kind of what Kevin walked into the other night. Pieces of paper all over the place. Because I don't write music. I write words with chords, and then I just play. And so there's all these, and it doesn't matter what piece of paper. It could be something that the grocery store left me, and I write a song on it. You know that, Margaret. Or I'm somewhere and I have to write it down. So I walked in and I saw all these pieces of music, and I was like, God, all of these unfinished songs. Unfinished song. I sat down at the piano, the whole song came out. The whole show turned into an unfinished song. So Kevin came home the other day, and I had written a new song. Actually, a piece of a new song, still unfinished. But I also pulled out all my unfinished songs. And I was like, how important is it, James, for you to actually get these songs finished? And you know what my answer was? Not at all. I was like, I don't need to finish this. This is just creativity. The reason why I want to finish it is because I think it needs to be a finished product. But it's not. It is a living, creative entity. And some of them I pull up and I'm like, I start to play it. I go, I have no idea why I wrote this song. And a lot of them are really depressing. Songwriters tend to write a lot of depressing crap. And I have written so many songs. I wrote one song and I played it. I sat there playing it and I was like, oh my God, I used to do this in the cabarets of New York. What were people thinking about me? It was a song called While Pain Is Still My Friend. Yeah, it's a cool country tune. By the end of it, everybody's like, okay, we're done. Yeah, and I had a lot of those songs, you know. Leave me, leave me, leave me. That was one of my songs. Leave me, leave me. And I know who I wrote it for. And he left me. It's true, very true. So, what matters most to you in your life? I just really want you to think about that today. Because frankly, that is the only thing you should be putting your focus on. If whatever's going on over here is distracting you from it or contradicting what you know is yours to do, this cannot get your attention. That person cannot get your attention. Listen, feel it, decide, and then focus on what matters most. Sometimes that contrary voice actually spurs you and actually stimulates you and helps you see something even more in what matters most to you. So I'm not saying we ignore those things. No, we listen to them, we process them, we allow them, and then we stick with what matters most. Does this build my message? Does this build my vision? Does this create more creativity in me? Or is it distracting me? Margaret's song, What's Mine to Do, really works well when you ask that question from a place of knowing. Not a place of inquisition. Not a, what is mine to do, but a place of, what's mine to do? And I'm asking that in me that knows the answer. Because the answer is not going to come from my critical mind trying to make sense out of it, because I'm going to try to make sense out of it in a relative world of facts. And that is not going to help me at all. But if I'm saying what's mine to do, as I asked you to do at the beginning of service today, if I'm asking what's mine to do from that bigger place in me that knows, I have some really interesting answers that comes up. So here's the next question for you. Why does it matter? What matters most in your life? You pick it, okay, it's creativity. Why does it matter? And I used that slide today because this is one of the quantum slides that show up when I put in the word quantum in pixels. This is one of them. I've never used it before. Why do things matter to you? Well, a lot of reasons. Likes, dislikes, beliefs, AEPs, already established premises of life, race consciousness, fads, trends. There are so many different reasons why what matters most to you is what matters most to you. You can name them. If we did a workshop on this, I'd ask you to. I'd ask you to write it down. Pick what matters most to you. Now tell me why it matters most to you. But even after you tell me why it matters most to you, I'm going to ask you to back that up. What beliefs cause you to want this to matter most, or to think this matters most? Because behind all of these likes and dislikes, beliefs, fads, race consciousness, beyond all of that is a quantum field of pure intelligence, pure creativity, where as Elizabeth Gilbert says, where every idea comes from, every desire, every creative essence of your being comes from this field of pure creativity. And what we do is we then take that and start putting our beliefs with it and start creating ideas that are morphed into a personality that we've created. But I'm telling you, there is a possibility, there is an absolute possibility for you to move beyond your personal beliefs, likes and dislikes, fads, race consciousness. We do it every time we meditate. Every time we actually drop in. We drop into something that is not impressed by our personality. It literally impresses upon us from this amazing space of truth. So, yesterday, we had our telethon. And it was, how many of you watched the telethon or were here? If you haven't, the replay starts today. It's 3 hours. You don't have to sit there for 3 hours. But there are spectacular moments in this telethon. It was 3 hours that flew by. Some amazing people, some legends were on our stage yesterday, talking about their life, how they broke the ceiling, the glass ceiling. Kelly Lang was here and talked about how she broke the glass ceiling for women in broadcasting. She was the #1 female broadcaster in the United States and got paid the highest salary, finally making women make close to what men make. That's what I wanted to talk about yesterday with her. And she was on this stage talking about that. There were incredible songs, but Kevin and I decided to do a scene from an unfinished song, that musical I told you about, that we opened in New York in 1992. And we hadn't done the scene in 30 years. And when we did it, we didn't look the way we look now. We were 30 years younger. But I did show the picture of us 30 years younger so that people had it in their mind what we were supposed to look like. And so we did the scene. And we hadn't really rehearsed it that much, and Kevin didn't want to rehearse it that much. He was like, what I really want to do is just do it and see what happens. Never a good idea for actors to just do it and see what happens. But we did, and we read the scene, and it went fine, but halfway through the scene, I was not operating in the present. Talking about being present week. I wasn't in the present. My body had somehow taken over this position of a 68-year-old man who's been married for 34 years, looking at his husband of 61. Thank you. 61. She's the same age as him, that's why she can tell me. 61, and knowing that this scene we were doing was when I was like 35, and he was 20-something. And there was sort of me outside of it, watching it, feeling all emotional about what we were saying to one another. And I got through the scene, and then I picked up my guitar to sing, and literally, and in my head, I'm like, just sing this damn song. Just sing it. Because I'm not Patti LuPone. I can't cry and sing simultaneously. If I cry, my throat shuts down. Patti somehow tears, and she's just barreling through the song. Doesn't matter. Don't cry for me, Argentina, because she doesn't cry. So I'm playing the song, and I'm doing really great. I'm halfway through the song, and Kevin takes his hand and rubs my hair, and I can't even breathe. And my throat, I don't know if you all caught that, but my throat just closed, and I couldn't sing a few notes. The reason I bring this up today is because it's exactly what I'm talking about. Our theme this month is clarity. And what I'm getting clear on is how much of my past, how much of my life comes into a present moment and dictates how I'm feeling, what I'm seeing. Now, I'm good with what happened yesterday. I love that. I love the emotion that came up, and I had such great ideas about our marriage and where this play has taken us. But then I thought, beyond all of that is a truth that transcends all of that. And when I went there yesterday, everything just shifted. And I love the 30-year-old who wrote the song. I love us who we were as a couple then. I love who we are now. And all of it comes together as one thing when I'm aware of it. And nothing takes me over. I don't get lost in it. I'm actually present in it. It doesn't grab me. It fuels me. So the title of my talk today is this: how do I know? Now, there's two ways of looking at this. The first one is, how do I know? How many of you have ever said that? How do I know? And what you're really saying is, I don't know, right? So it's how do I know? But the other part is, how do I know? And that's the question I have for us today. Right in the middle of this whole clarity month, right in the whole idea of what's mine to do, how do I know? And that goes back to, you know what you know because of everything you've learned up to this point. Or you could know what you know, regardless of everything you've learned up to this point, by just tapping in to your true, authentic, powerful, dynamic, amazing quantum self. Choice. And the third part of this is, I can know what I know because I tap into that quantum, brilliant, amazing self and still know all of that and have a better perspective on it. That's what this teaching can do for us. Give us a perspective on our lives that transcends anything that this might bring into my present moment. So, Werner Heisenberg said this: not only is the universe stranger than we think, it is stranger than we can think. Just this morning, Eric Bork said this morning in treatment, as he was treating everybody before service, he said, I will paraphrase, somewhere in there, what I know is more than my human mind can ever know. And I, of course, hear anything that seems negative twists in my head. I go, what? And I was like, no, he's absolutely correct. And it's exactly what I'm talking about today. There is that in me that knows beyond my human mind, but the human mind is only an illusion. You don't have a human mind. You do not have a human mind. You have a human brain. That's your human brain. You do not have a human mind. Your mind is universal. Your mind is the mind of God. Your mind is the quantum field of pure intelligence. That's your mind. Can you turn it into a human brain operating only from the relative? Absolutely. Can you also stop operating in a world of the relative and only operate from the absolute? Absolutely. Is it easy? Your limiting belief can decide that. So, not only is the universe stranger than you think, it's stranger than we can think so far. Do you get that? So far, we have not been able to really comprehend this whole thing called quantum. But we can. I believe we can, and we are in the process of doing it. This Thursday night in ministerial class, I talked myself into an observation that literally, Eric, turned my whole concept of practitioner work upside down. And I'm talking through it, and I'm very aware and I'm awake, and our whole theme in ministerial class, like in advanced consciousness class, is question everything. Nothing is absolute other than the absolute. Your mind, my mind, the mind is always growing, always expanding. So I'm teaching. I wasn't teaching, I was teaching this thing, and I was talking about the difference between first cause and secondary cause. First causation, secondary causation. First causation is the infinite universe always creating perfectly. Secondary causation is when you use relative facts to react to something and you create it all over again. But it's secondary because it's your reaction to it. It's not the thing itself. So first cause, I'm talking about first cause, and I'm talking about Emerson calls it the oversoul. Troward calls it, thank you, the divine ideal. I knew the answer. I just wanted to see if someone else did. And ultimately, we call it God. The divine ideal, the oversoul, first cause. It's all one thing, God, right? So I was thinking, wait, if it's God, then, go ahead, Thor. God is thinking. God is thinking. Not Eric Bork is thinking. God is thinking. Yes, individuated as Eric Bork. But God is thinking. And I thought to myself, do I want to continue thinking from first cause or from secondary causation? And I hate to bring this to everyone's attention, but most of us are thinking from secondary causation at all times. We are constantly moving in the secondary causation world. And I just got it. And I said to my 18 ministerial students, I was like, guys, do you think it's possible for you to think from first cause, as first cause. And it was really interesting. I don't know if you were there yet, Tiffany, when we went through this, but everybody's face was just like, no, they're all practitioners. Everybody's face was just like, I said, because guess what? That's actually what Ernest Holmes was teaching. A practitioner must drop into first cause and speak and know from first cause only. The minute you bring in the relative facts, the minute you bring in, oh, it's my friend Eric, I know what's going on in his life. No, you don't. No, you know the relative facts. But what's the absolute? There is Eric, a perfect expression of God at all times, no matter what. Now, what's going on? And I stay there. And oh my God, all of a sudden it was like, I need to live my life from first cause. I need to stop living my life reacting. And it went back to that whole concept of what matters most to me. And if what matters most to me is living in first cause, I don't have the opportunity, I don't have the pleasure to go live in this world of gossip and backbiting and all that kind of stuff that happens in the world. But there's also a lot of beautiful, brilliant, gorgeous, loving, kind things happening in the world. That's what matters most. This stuff, take a deep breath and allow it to just move wherever it needs to go. So, I know you're like, you never talk this much about this sort of stuff. But this week was really a very different week for me. So, Johann Wolfgang von Goethe has another quote. The greatest thing in the world is not so much as where we stand, as in what direction are we moving. Taking a stand, oh, that's all great. But if you take a stand, you've stopped. How about holding lightly to the things you're taking stands on and allow yourself to maybe expand a bit and keep moving? Don't keep trying to go back to what it was, because it's not and never will be again what it was. It's moving. So the real question for all of us today is, in what direction are you moving? I'd like to tell you where we're moving. Right now, a lot of our members are at a booth in the Thousand Oaks Fair. And they've done a beautiful, I'll show it to you later, a beautiful booth with all the books that we teach. And they've done a contest where you give us your email, and at the end of the day, we'll pick one, and you get to win this whole stack of really amazing Joe Dispenza and Elizabeth Gilbert, all these books. They've done a brilliant job. We have people at this center, my ministers, my staff ministers, Eric, Tiffany, Liza, Karen, Suzanne, all of the staff ministers here are single-mindedly moving this teaching in another direction. Not another, in a direction. Right? We are single-mindedly, all of us very much together, taking this teaching out into the world. And so I had something happen this week, and I'll close with this. I want to be very careful how I tell this story, because I believe every religion is important, and I believe every religion has something in common, and there is love at the center of all of these religions. But I will say this, not every religion helps people to know who they are. Not every religion honors the truth in people and sees the perfection in people. And this week, that hit me over the head broadly. I had to reach out to a minister about something. He was very gracious, very loving, and we handled this issue very quickly. But I thought, I should see what he does, because it looks like they're doing a great job. And I went on, and I watched a talk. I watched a half of a talk. It's all I could get through. And it was all about hell, damnation, sinners. You will not survive unless you live through Jesus Christ, who I absolutely adore, Jesus Christ, by the way, Jesus of Nazareth, the Christ consciousness. And it was aimed at these, and I saw the audience, and there were a lot of young people there, and I'm aimed at these people. You are sinners. You cannot get to heaven, and if you do not accept Jesus Christ as your Savior, you will go to hell. It was, and my body revolted. I was like, I've spent my whole ministry honoring all of these religions and talking about how we're similar. Well, you know what? Today I'm going to talk about how we're different, because it's important. I'm getting very emotional here. Because if I can save one child from growing up thinking they're a sinner because of who they love, We need to teach this. So what matters most to me? It's not any organization, any book, any individual church. It's about the message that we are the infinite love of the universe and that you get to choose how to live your life. That's why Reverend Connie Milner is out in that booth right now giving kids presents, affirmation cards that tell them they are loved. I want families in here. I want children downstairs in the daycare, in the children's program, being taught how amazing they are, not told. It just makes me cry that they're going to go to hell unless they do exactly what they're being told to do. That is not who we are. And if you want to be a part of what we're bringing to the world, then you are in the right place. And you are putting your support and your energy behind this message. Because what is the most important thing to me in the world? It's to let people know that they are God. And they are not damaged goods. And they are not having to wait till they die to be happy. Happiness is here, now, for us to live as God. And that's the message. Namaste.